On today's special crossover episode, the host that we love covering the team that we hate. Special crossover of Locked On Avalanche and Locked On Wild coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, everybody. Welcome to a crossover episode of Locked On Avalanche and Locked On Wild. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am Chris Maselli from Locked On Avalanche. Joining me from Locked On Wild, one of our favorites, Mr. Seth Toupal. How you doing today? So how's your off season going so far? Taking it easy?
Yeah, we're just having a good time, and we're getting the occasional breadcrumbs of NHL news throughout the last few weeks. But honestly, it's been fun to just kind of kick back a little bit and refresh for what is going to be just another insanely busy season. We just had the schedule release here recently, and it's going to be jam-packed yet again. So get the rest while you can, and gear up for 2025, 2026.
Now, when I did my episode on the schedule release, I had seen your tweet about, because the Avalanche have 12 back-to-backs. I saw your post about the Wild having 14, and you informed me that's not even the most in the league. There's some teams with 15, 16.
Yeah, we really have.
So
we really have gotten to the point where back-to-backs are just, I guess, a staple. And there's nothing worse. I don't know how you feel about this, Chris. There's nothing worse for me than when you are going toe-to-toe against a division rival on the second night of a back-to-back, and that division rival has had 2 or 3 days off.
Yep. Oh, it's the worst. Doesn't make sense to me. Absolute worst. And I think there are times where the Avs are playing the Wild on a back-to-back, and I can't think off the top of my head if it's the first or second game, but they're in there. They're mixed in there. So, and this whole going to 84 games, I didn't really think it's necessary. I'm fine with the 82. I know people want to take some away. I'm fine with 82, but I feel like you can make this where you don't have this many back-to-backs. Like for games, I'm fine with 82. If you want to scale it down, I'm fine. And the more I thought about it with the CBA, how they're bringing it the max terms down to 7, the more I thought about it, like, I'd be fine if it went the other way. I'd be fine if you make 10-year max, because I like when players hang around on a team in the free agency world that we live in, that's been around forever, that players just go every which way. That's fun and exciting to see teams change jerseys or players change jerseys. I get that. But I also like the now rare feat of a guy staying with one team for his entire career. I would have been fine with 10 years being the max. So if they don't want to sign a 10-year deal, they don't have to, but the option is there to do it. But they're going the other way. So I don't know.
Yeah, it is interesting that we have kind of gone to this point, because, I look back on one of the big moments for the Minnesota Wilds, the Zach Parise and Ryan Suter contracts, the 13-year mega deals that were signed by both players as a way to kind of get the Wild on the map after some really down years. Now your big splash in free agency would be 6-year deals.
Crazy. I know. I mean, the other aspect of it is players will move around more, and maybe that's what the league want, or at least teams have the opportunity to go get other guys, and maybe those bottom feeding teams are not down there as long because there's guys available to them more often. I get all that, but that is what it is. Talking about our teams and making moves and signings and all that stuff. I think like we're kind of in the same kind of ballpark here for the Avs and the Wild of haven't done a ton. I was looking at an article on The Athletic, and they ranked all the teams on how who improved the most. They ranked them all, and the Wild, I believe, were at 17 or 18, and they had like a net rating for them. The net rating for the Wild was 0. So no the first line of the commentary was The Wild basically rearranged the deck chairs on the Titanic is what they did. And then for the Avalanche, they were at like 21 and their net rating was -2. So both these teams not doing a ton in the offseason. As we're recording this, there's still a long way to go. Are you happy with the offseason so far for the Wild? What could still be to come for them?
It's interesting because I think Wild fans had been told coming into this year that the shackles are finally off and the Minnesota Wild are going to make big splashes on July 1st. This is Craig Leopold said this is going to be Christmas in July for the Minnesota Wild, and your big moves are Vladimir Tarasenko and Nico Sturm. But
good old Nico Sturm, yeah,
one of my favorites. I am very glad he's back, but he's back to play a fourth line role, and this team needs some scoring. But if you look at some of the deals that were handed out, Brock Nelson was obviously near the top or at the top of their list as far as players go that they were trying to get in free agency. He obviously re-upped with the Avs. Brock Besser was another guy that the Wilds had interest in, but he ended up re-upping with the Vancouver Canucks. And beyond that, there just weren't a ton of guys. There was the Mitch Marner sweepstakes, which of course was won by the Vegas Golden Knights. Nobody's shocked by that. There just wasn't a ton, and it is kind of a cautionary tale of you don't really get results all the times if you just go strictly based on free agency of building your team. Just ask the Nashville Predators a couple years ago.
Right.
Crazy in free agency, and they were one of the worst teams in the league. So I do understand the restraint that the Minnesota Wild showed and not wanting to try to get tied down in long-term deals. With Kirill Kaprizov's deal still coming, you still have the uncertainty with what's going on with Marco Rossi. I can understand not wanting to muddy the books while that's going on. Bill Guerin also said that there just aren't a ton of teams that are in sell mode right now. He was working the trade market trying to find a taker for Rossi to also help kind of booster the top six. That hasn't panned out as of yet. Teams just right now are kind of in wait and see mode. So it feels like the big addition for this team is going to be the Wild going after whatever team taps out. I know Tage Thompson has been linked to the Minnesota Wild a lot. If the Buffalo Sabres tap out during the season and he gets to the point where he's like, I can't do this here, I don't want to do this here anymore, then I would imagine the Wild will be heavily in pursuit of a guy like that. Here's the problem, though. You're going to have 30 other teams lining up to try to go get a guy like that if he becomes available. And the other part of it is if the prices for free agents are a little too rich, what do you think the trade market for players like that is going to be like? And if you're going to build your team up through trade to try to find those bona fide top six guys, they're not going to come cheap. And you can't really do the free agency dance and say, just too rich. We went shopping for cars and the prices were just too much for our budget. And then go around and say, I looked at some trades and those were too expensive. Like at some point you got to dip your toes in the water and get involved here.
It's interesting you say, what you said in the beginning of that, of the Wild had guys on their radar and they just went other places. And I think that's true for the Avs too. Like they had some, Taves was one of them. Jonathan Taves was on their radar, and he went to Winnipeg. It was funny, like you're listing guys like, oh, he went here, and I could do the same thing. I think they were in on Nikolai Ehlers, and he went to Carolina. But the thing with the Avalanche is like their funds were just limited. So for guys like that, they were like, we want you here. You're gonna have to take a haircut to come here, and that's what free agent can say. I'm not gonna do that, and some guys didn't do that. Now we did an episode of kind of talking about like this free agency class was not so deep. Next year is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Do you feel like is there any part of the Wild that are doing that? Maybe, yeah, we got to put a team together and compete. We made the playoffs last year. You want to do that again? But is there anything like, okay, like let's not overextend ourselves this year, because especially with Minnesota, what's your cap space? Like you got 10 million right now.
Yeah,
And
we got 10-ish to play with right now.
Yeah. So is there any looking forward to next year's class already and saying, let's, put out a good team, put out a good product, and next year that splash that a lot of Wild fans were thinking about maybe do that next year?
I think that certainly weighs in, and I had the TV analyst for the Minnesota Wild on last week, and he said something that hadn't really occurred to me before we chatted. He said if the Wilds didn't feel like, because I think part of what they're going to do too is get a look at some of these prospects that we've been hearing about for the last several years to see if they can fill some of these roles. And the Wilds, it feels like, would have been a little more aggressive and a little more active if they didn't feel like the prospects they have in the system can at least grow into those types of roles. They may not be able to hold it down right away, but you don't go and get a Vladimir Tarasenko in the last year of his deal after a down year in Detroit and say he is the answer at second line.
Right. Yeah.
You say, we're hoping that he can kind of get rejuvenated by being in a new place, by being on a team that is more in the playoff picture than Detroit was. We're hoping that he can kind of lock that down for a little bit. And if he falters, insert prospect A into that spot and see if they can kind of hit the ground running and go with it. If they didn't think that those players were ready to take those spots, you probably are pretty aggressive in trying to get that figured out before the season starts.
Interesting stuff. So why don't we get our first break in here, and we come back from that. Something that I'm sure you have not talked about yet, and that's extensions and Marco Rossi and Kirill Kaprizov. So we'll do that next. Let's hear from FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, you golfer, Seth?
Oh, yeah.
Are you?
Big time.
Yeah? Any career hole-in-ones?
Not yet, but I've come close a couple times.
It's same here. And I came close twice, missed the birdie putt both times, too. So all for naught. So FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting, and you're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? And with FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburn on the beach or missing birdie putts. So new to FanDuel, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right. So, these off seasons for these teams are kind of like mirroring each other a little bit, including big extensions that could be coming down the pike here for the Avs with, Marty Nashis potentially. And then definitely for Minnesota and Kirill Kaprizov. I know you've talked about this probably a million times. What's the latest for that? What is is there a holdup for it, or is it just it's going through the regular motions and no need to panic? Everything will be fine. This is not a Mikko Rantanen situation.
It's pretty much exactly what Bill Guerin said. He said, I would love to say that this is going to get done on July 1st, but if it doesn't, we don't need to panic. We don't need to go down he definitely doesn't want to stay here.
Right.
We don't need to go down that road. All indications are that Kirill loves Minnesota. It's grown on him. He's kind of been embraced by this fan base. He obviously has broken pretty much every record that exists for this franchise in his short tenure, which is just crazy.
And how old is he? 28?
Yeah.
Bananas.
And he has, I think there's single digit records left to be broken already on his watch. So he obviously he's the best player the Wild have ever had. Craig Leopold has been very vocal that no one will be able to offer him more money than the Minnesota Wild.
Okay.
And Chris, I think another thing that is kind of going in Minnesota's favor is the contract stipulations that we talked about a little bit in the first segment in the new CBA. The Minnesota Wild, if they sign him before July 1st, 2026, they can offer him 8 years.
Right.
If he were to say, I'm not doing it, he would be able to sign in free agency with a team for 6. So
big difference.
There's a 2-year difference
huge.
there. And if the Wild go at 15 and a half, which is, it's rumored that they're going to be somewhere in that ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
Think about what a team would have to offer him on a 6-year deal to match that or exceed that.
You're losing $30 million basically.
Yeah, you're pricing a lot of teams out on being able to do that too. And the big thing that it comes down to is Kirill wants to be in a spot where the Wild are going to be contenders. He wants to go to a team that has a legitimate shot to win a cup.
Mm-hmm.
And he has seen this Minnesota Wild team be at least a playoff team, $14+ million short of where everybody else is. So Bill Guerin has been able to maneuver that at least a little bit. And now you've got this highly rated prospect system that's knocking on the door of being ready to help out at the NHL level. And you have a GM who is very, very much chomping at the bit to make a game-changing addition. These are a lot of appealing factors for a guy in Kirill Kaprizov. And I look at it like contracts for NFL quarterbacks.
Right.
There's going to be a sticker shock, obviously, when the deal is signed. But at the end of the day, the next big-time player that comes due for a contract is going to exceed it. As the cap continues to go up, players are just going to reset the number every time. I think the hit is substantially worse if you let him walk. You let him go. You trade for maybe 75 cents on the dollar. You'd get a fair return for him in a trade.
Sure.
But it wouldn't be him. So I think the hit is far worse than overpaying a few $1 million a year to keep him than it is to just try to start over from scratch.
Well, one of the most fascinating things that I just watch every year is just those buyouts with minutes. But you're kind of over the worst of it, no?
Yep.
So I'm on their Puckpedia right now. So you're under $1 million for each one of those guys now for the rest of the life of those things. So congratulations, God. you made it through the worst. I just continue to be fascinated by that decision, and on top of that, Seth, fascinated by how they navigated it, and pretty impressive on how they navigated. It was going to be tough. That's a lot of dead money. And the fact that you held your head above water, were competitive for most of it, is really darn impressive.
Yeah, and the way that the team has been built, obviously they leaned more into the defense when they had these cap hits. That defense is pretty well set with top end prospects that are going to be slotting in to fill as players age out. So that money that is now available, you can throw all that into the offense pretty much. Yeah. And you can go get an impact top line or second line player that is going to really change the makeup of this team. There's one extension though that is not getting as much talk as the other two are, that is going to need to be addressed at some point. Philip Gustafsson, who is he's going to be coming up for a deal here pretty soon, and I am, even with Jesper Wallstedt in the system and all the expectations that the Wild have for him, I would like to see a Gus deal get done, because you can never have, as you know, there is a high price to be paid for having good goaltending, and it is worth that price. For this year, your tandem at 5.95 is just, that is a steal. What does that look like for him? What could be the number for Gustafsson? I saw a projection that he could sign something like 6 years for 6.7-ish million, and I would do that. I'd do that yesterday.
Yeah.
That's
a nice increase. Yeah.
It's a nice bump for him, but if he is a top 10 goalie in the league, which statistically he has been, you're getting a nice little discount compared to what some of the rest of the top 10 goalies in the league are getting.
Wow. And I mentioned Rossi. Just what's the latest with that? That just seems like a soap opera that's just not ending right now. It seems like he was on the way out, and then Minnesota's like, no, we want to keep him here, and I can't make heads or tails of it. I'm almost just wanting to ignore it and then just tell me when it's over. But I'd be willing to take him off your hands because I've always liked that guy. I know the size is an issue. And I know there's Avalanche fans out there right now just banging their keyboard or punching their car stereo right now because they don't they feel like the Avalanche have enough small guys. What's going on with this whole thing?
There's a pretty hefty divide between the two that it just does not seem like they can get common ground. And not only is it a nice gap in the AAV, it's a gap on the term as well. The Rossi camp was looking for 7x7. They wanted the Matt Boldy money. And honestly, Chris, you can speak to this too. The extensions that we've seen given out to some of the young players in this league, they're right there. They're right there at that price point. It seems like, you can go compare like Matty Beniers in Seattle. He got a 7-year, $50 million deal. Matt Coronado got 6.5 for 7 years. That's just the going rate for these types of players. And Bill Guerin just does not. He keeps saying that they have a price structure for players like that he just is not willing to exceed. And the Wild countered with a 5x5. That got a pretty resounding no. So the Rossi camp, I think, countered with a higher AAV, shorter term. The Wild didn't like that. It has been a calamity.
Yeah.
That it does not. And I guess I'll give Bill Guerin credit for not trading a guy like that just for the sake of trading him and saying we're not going to get rid of him unless we get the value we're seeking. I don't think the value that the Wild are looking for in this trade, I don't think that exists. I don't think they're going to get what they're looking for. And
what's his value? They bumped him down to the fourth line in the postseason, didn't they? They were cutting his minutes. They cut his value. So, wow. I mean, but you're saying teams at 5x5, he's at 7x7. I mean, I'm a basic man, but could they just come together at 6x6 here? Or no? Is that just too much?
You would think. The other interesting part about this is Marco Rossi was offered for JJ Peterka.
What?
And then
when?
some. Oh yeah. There
I didn't hear that.
So there were some crazy trades that
Who said no to that?
Buffalo did.
Wow.
The Wild offered Marco Rossi and for JJ Peterka, and the Sabres said no.
Okay. I did not hear that.
So
okay.
It does not look like, which has led me to kind of what I think the final resolution for this will be, is I think he will end up getting moved in whatever deal the Wild do at or before the deadline this year to bring in their big top 6 addition. I think he will be a piece. Maybe they do what the Sabres did with Bowen Byram and they sign him to a deal just to get him to unrestricted free agency.
Right.
I think he will be moved as kind of the centerpiece of a deal to whatever team the Wild do business with to bring in a big star for the top 6.
Could he do if nobody's budging, could he just do a 1-year deal or something like that? And then at the trade deadline, he gets traded to a team and then he'll sign his bigger deal with that team. Kind of like what Mikko Rantanen did.
You'd think that would be kind of the ultimate resolution for this is let's just get something done. We'll look to will look to move you when the time is right. Because it's like, I know Rossi wants to get, I know he wants to get his fair market value in a deal.
Sure, right.
But if he were to hold out, that doesn't really do him any favors.
Not helping. Nope, that's not helping anybody. So, wow. All right. Another episode as the Wild turns here in the off season. So let's get one more break in, and then I always love getting early expectations. Mid-July, everyone's loving where their team is right now. What are we thinking for next year for the Wild? We'll do that next. All right, man. So yeah, the Wild playoff team last year. Was that a little bit of a surprise? Maybe, but hey, you're a playoff team. You're kind of expected to do that again. And that's got to be the expectation for the Wild, right? Like you made it. I don't think a lot of people expected you to, but you did. And it's got to be like, well, that now we have to go to the next phase, which is win around or, deeper into the playoffs. And, you have cap. I know we talked everything we talked about leading up to right now. What is it? What is it? Is it, yeah, we're good enough to win a round or two for next year?
I think that is ultimately the goal. And you look at what has gone on in the Central Division, and much like last year, I think now I would say that the gap may have shrunk a little bit, but I'm going to kind of lump the teams like they were last year. Like you got Winnipeg, Dallas, Colorado at the top of the division. I don't think that's going to change much, although we did see pretty much every team in that trio have to deal with tight cap, tight pockets. Yep. So, they're still all very good teams. The gap between tier 1 and tier 2 maybe has just shrunk a little bit. I think the next tier, I'd put Minnesota. I'd probably put St. Louis. Just for the fact that I don't think it's possible for them to be as bad, I'm going to put Nashville in that tier 2.
Mm-hmm.
The two interesting ones in the division, I think, are going to be Chicago and Utah. Like, do the Mammoth really put it together? Do they make a big push this year? They could. Mm-hmm. Chicago is another team where we've been waiting for them to kind of ascend for seemingly a decade. Yeah. I'll believe it when I see it. Yeah. But I think it's not going to shock me at all if Dallas, Winnipeg, Colorado are the top 3 in the division, and maybe one of those teams falls to a wild card spot. But I have a hard time believing that one of those teams is going to miss the playoffs entirely.
Right. I would agree with that. Yeah.
I think it's going to be Minnesota. It's going to be St. Louis and Nashville probably fighting for wild card spots. At least one. Now, maybe the Pacific wins one of the wild card spots this year. I guess we'll have to see, but it definitely is. The expectations are playoffs again for this Minnesota Wild team, and it's going to be fascinating to see what Bill Guerin does, because if they miss the playoffs, his seat probably gets a little hotter.
You think so?
There is a wide range of outcomes that the Wild could have this season, and so I think we're going to see Bill Guerin be very aggressive in trying to either jumpstart or trying to further. If the team gets off to a hot start, I think he's going to be real anxious to put the chips in.
Okay.
If they get off to a slow start, he's going to probably get the defibrillator out and try to make something happen.
Yeah, man, I like this division. It's a tough. Chicago brings you down a little bit, but even with, I think people are expecting a turnaround in Nashville, and yeah, I think Utah's not a pushover anymore.
No.
Are they a playoff team? No, maybe like a fringe playoff team, but they can make life miserable for some people. They'll be in the mix. They're no longer a pushover, right? So yeah, with the exception of Chicago, it's a tough division. There's gonna be some tight battles. the episode I did with about the schedule, I'm kind of annoyed with the Avs schedule that their season ends with 5 straight games against the Pacific. Like, yeah, I mean, like there's no like last game or even second to last game against a division rival. Something could be on the line. Like your last, like you play Dallas, I think it's the second game of April. That could be a big game, but you have 7 games after that. Like it, so the schedule, I don't like how it matched up because this is a good division. This is a strong division outside of Chicago. And I think no matter who you're going up against, I say outside of Chicago, the Avalanche couldn't beat them last year. For some stupid reason, the Avalanche could not beat Chicago. So that's just a division matchup, which is just a wild matchup for them. It's a tough division. It's going to be a fun battle to see how this all plays out because you take nothing for granted in this division. Nothing.
Yeah, it is going to be very fun to see how this plays out. Because like I said, I don't get the sense that somebody's going to massively fall off. So every point is going to matter. And just selfishly for me, it's going to be fun to watch the Wild this year without them having to literally count dollars and cents every single day because they are so close to the cap that they have to try to, you're playing some games with 6 defensemen to try to get an extra roster spot to accrue cap.
Yep.
We don't have to breathe like that. We don't have to live like that anymore. So that's going to be fun to have that off my plate this year at the least.
Do you have plans for when those buyouts are completely off the books? Is there a party you're throwing? Are you throwing like a carnival in your backyard? Like, are you buying a very expensive some Pappy Van Winkle bourbon or something, a $5,000 bottle? Like, what's the plan when those extension or buyouts are gone?
You know what I should do? This is a brilliant idea. I'm going to write this down and actually do this. I'm going to treat the day that the buyouts are done as if I am getting a day to celebrate the Stanley Cup myself.
Oh, that's brilliant. Brilliant. And get people involved with that. So everybody gets their day to celebrate the buyouts are over.
I'm just going to get 2 pieces of paper laminated. One's going to say Zach Parise buyout. Yep. One's going to say Ryan Suter buyout. Take them out to lunch.
Yeah.
Take them out on the boat, going water skiing. Like we're gonna do this big. We're gonna do this right.
Bring them for some ice cream or something like that. Oh my God, I love it. That is, make sure you are documenting that and putting that up because that'll be an event. I love it, man. Brilliant. All right, so that is going to wrap it up for today. Why don't Seth throw out where people can follow you in the show?
Yeah, we got lucky. All you have to do is search Locked On Wild. You'll find all of the socials, and we're working on kind of getting things ready for the 2025-2026 season. Putting a full template together for what the coverage is going to look like on a day-to-day basis. So keep an eye out for that. We are doing player evaluations at the moment. So if you want to hear what letter grade Marcus Johansson got, you can tune into the first of these episodes. Every player on the roster, just trying to grade their performance. Sure. And, you know how that goes. Just trying to make sure we give everybody that letter grade they deserve. So Locked On Wild on social media. Follow us on your favorite audio platforms and on YouTube. And we'll keep you up to date on everything Minnesota Wild.
Love it, man. All right. Always love catching up with you. I'm sure we will do this again either before the season starts or some point during the season. So definitely follow Seth along on socials and follow Locked On Wild podcast, and as well as myself over on social media and Locked On Avalanche too. So, all right. Thank you everybody for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. And we'll see you guys later.